the rare and appropriate NFL Sunday into a Monday now, talking baseball. And oh, how sweet it is. All the haters, Garcia, Koopaloop, all of those losers. The Dodgers, the Doyers are into the World Series. Now, our lead does come from that story in La La Land, the ballroom dance in Game 6 of the National League Championship Series. And there was a contingent of these annoying Met fans that actually thought they were going to win Game 6 and Game 7. I was getting texts. Now, I got it on both sides because as you probably know if you listen to the show, I have a family that lives in New York, and my brother moved there when I was a kid, and I have other relatives living in the area. And so they're like mixed. There's half Mets fans, half Yankee fans. But the Mets fans, one of the top 5 most annoying fan bases, they were all, Dodgers are in trouble. They're going to choke it all away. Francisco Lindor's Mets heading into Los Angeles, trying to get back even and force the Game 7 against Shohei Ohtani and the Dodgers, and you know what happened. I assume you watched, but maybe not. It was on Fox. You should have watched FS1. Tommy Edman. Who? Tommy Edman. And Will Smith, the Fresh Prince of Chavez Ravine, had home runs, and they helped Shohei Ohtani punch his ticket to the World Series for the first time as the Dodgers have exterminated, bye-bye, the Mets. Turn out the lights, the party's over. No more October baseball for you. 10-5, the final. The Dodgers win Game 6, and so they're back in the World Series. The Dodgers clinching their 25th National League pennant, and they're first at home since Lasorda and the boys did it back in 1988. And they also beat the Mets, because who doesn't beat the Mets? Everyone eventually beats the Mets. That was in 7 games. So the Dodgers now go to their 22nd World Series. That seems like a lot. It is. 13th since they moved to La La Land back in the day, and the first since the hardest World Series of all time, when they won in 2020 during a global pandemic. So they can do it again. But let us discuss the better story, normally in the losing locker room, but not on this night. We'll start with the Dodgers. We'll get to the Mets in a minute, but the better story here, the Dodgers into the World Series, as we will discuss. The question for the esteemed panel to begin the festivities here, what is your reaction to Shohei Ohtani and the Dodgers not being choking bums and actually getting to the World Series? So I've got Pebble, One Hit Wonder, and Kennel Club. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make a very expensive laundry bill, which is what's going to happen as they have to fumigate the Dodger clubhouse there from all the different alcoholic beverages that were everywhere, all over the clothing and the whole thing. Anyway, so my first thought on this is bravo. Bravo. I am a skeptic. That goes with the job. And we are pleased, pleasantly surprised. Pleasantly surprised is the way I will describe this, because the Dodgers had been guilty for the last 2 years of truancy. No show against the Padres, that pathetic Padre team a couple years ago, and then they really outdid themselves in suckage against the Diamondbacks last year. But all of that is prologue. All of that is in the past. And now it is on. No more Houdini act like they did against the Padres and the Diamondbacks there. They take care of San Diego, and they were strutting around like peacocks out there at Dodger Stadium, and that steroid cheat Fernando Tatis was dancing in the outfield, egging on Dodger fans. And then I love the Padres. They were encouraging fans to throw crap at them and then seemed troubled that they were doing it. Wild. Anyway, so they win that, and they beat the Mets, because why not? Everyone beats the Mets. And the Dodgers do it with, in this game, they had a bullpen game, which I hate. I cannot stand the bullpen game. But fortunately, Sean Manaea doesn't have big balls, and he couldn't get it done. He had an early lead. Manaea. You guys had told me how great Sean Manaea was and how wonderful all these Mets idiots. Oh, Manaea's so good. Ha! He had a 1-0 lead and puked all over the mound. And I loved every little ounce of puke that Sean Manaea, the Mets, left on the mound there at Dodger Stadium. And how about Ohtani, who actually, unlike so many of these star players who are dog food in big moments, Ohtani in the playoffs, in this series, he batted .364, couple of home runs, 6 runs batted in the National League Championship Series. To be fair, though, the Dodgers scored at will against that pathetic Met pitching staff. They scored a ton of runs, but he lived up to the hype. Mookie Betts, nice that he's not bowling. I thought he'd be bowling by now in Nashville. He's not. That's encouraging. And even with Freddie Freeman unable to play, and when he plays, he looks like he's 1,000 years old, the Dodgers still able to get to the World Series. And then on the other side, how do you sum up Tommy Edman, the guy they got from the Cardinals at the trade deadline, who couldn't even play at the time they acquired him? But Tommy Edman wins the National League Championship Series Most Valuable Player. So it's appropriate and somewhat predictable. You might remember in a previous episode of this show, we talked about the kind of players that generally have success in playoff baseball, and Tommy Edman is right out of central casting, right? He is the classic postseason pebble. The pebble in the shoe.
Who?
Tommy Edman. I know. I had to look him up on Baseball Reference. He's like this little slap-hitting guy. Tommy Edman, those type of guys have upstaged bigger stars in playoff series my entire life. And yet, teams often think, well, I don't need guys like that. But when you look at teams that win, they usually have somebody that has an out-of-body experience who's not all that good. And Tommy Edman batted .407 in the National League Championship Series, 11 runs batted in, 3 doubles, had a home run in the game here. He's an agent provocateur, and he lived up to that, and not quite as good as I remember Eddie Rosario for the Atlanta Braves back in 2021 when he batted .560, although I think Edman had more RBIs than he did back then, Eddie Rosario, in that series for the Atlanta Braves. But so the Dodgers are into the World Series. That means the Mets are out. And what happened? You told me that Mets had all the magic. They had that Met magic. You got to believe. All you idiots in Wisconsin, the Mets are going to the World Series because that is stat. I had 75 people send me that effing stat about how everyone the Brewers lose to in the playoffs goes to the World Series. Not anymore. Shove that stat up your keister. That stat's done. And the Mets are done. Losers. The Mets are losers. And I loved it. Oh, it was so great. All of it. You know what happened to the Mets? The witching hour. That's what happened to the Mets. Okay? Cinderella's magic carriage turned back into a pumpkin, just like Pete Alonso's little pumpkin. But in this case, they got the pumpkin too soon. This is a rookie mistake. A lot of people make Halloween season, right? Halloween's coming up. People make that rookie mistake. You gotta buy the pumpkin at the right time. Because if you get the pumpkin too soon, what happens to the pumpkin? It gets all moldy. It gets that fuzz inside the pumpkin and starts rotting. That's the Mets. They started rotting. They got the pumpkin too soon. Bad job by them. And so the witching hour came, and the pumpkin turned sour, and that dumb OMG sign, that turned to dust. What else? We had Grimace, who was already drinking Modelo by the time they got to game 4? I think he was drinking Modelo. Yeah, that was outstanding. So the Mets done in, of all things, not only by the witching hour, but a one-hit wonder. When I say one-hit wonder, I'm talking about the group Missing Persons. And remember the tune? You've heard it. You probably weren't around when it was there. Nobody walks in L.A. except Met pitchers walking Dodger batters. That happens in L.A. And thank you very much to the outstanding job by the Mets pitching staff. Total incompetence. And I look at throwing strikes as a big league pitcher, the top 0.5% of 1% that make the major leagues. And you can't throw strikes. It's akin to an NBA player that can't make foul shots. No one is in your way. Now, if you happen to throw it down the middle of the plate, everyone loves nerds in baseball. Statistically speaking, by just throwing it down the middle of the plate, the hitter will get themselves out 7 of 10 times. 7 of 10 times. And yet, the Mets could not help themselves.
Bark, chicken.
They could not. And the Dodgers feasted by just standing there and watching the pitches go by. And that's a very odd strategy, but it worked. That's how bad the Mets are. It worked. You don't have to get that many hits if they just walk you, and then you get a hit when the bases are 2 on or the bases are loaded because the Mets decided to walk everybody. But that was the great equalizer in this series. So the Mets are done, and they'll go sign somebody. And they got an owner that's got a lot of money. The Mets are going to be in the playoffs every year because, like the Dodgers, they got a rich guy that owns the team. Dodgers have a hedge fund that owns their team. And they got one guy, Pete Alonso, who's also his own hedge fund, or not Pete Alonso, the Stephen Cohen, the owner there, who will spend big. Now, the last word, we'll have plenty of time this week. The World Series does not start till Friday, but knee-jerk reaction time. We love that in sports talk radio, so knee-jerk reaction. How do you rate the World Series matchup between the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers? All right, so that's the matchup. Two biggest teams in sports on the MALLER scale. The MALLER scale of excitement, 1 to 10. I don't want to be shock jock guy. I don't want to be over the top. The MALLER scale of excitement for the World Series, 1 to 10. I'm at a 578. That's where I am right now. And I think I'm going low on that. It's got a little bit of everything. Two most popular teams in the sport, check. You've got global appeal, check. You've got the star power. You've got monster mashers here, there, and everywhere. The biggest contracts in the sport. And for TV executives and Major League Baseball big shots, they're right now, they're like they work at the American Kennel Club, okay? The people who are doing television at Fox that are broadcasting the World Series and the people at Major League Baseball and those that have bought ad time for the World Series, it's like they're at the American Kennel Club. They're like the dog running around with two tails. They're so happy. It's orgasmic. What's this matchup? And it's just perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And it's going to be, I don't work for baseball, but it's going to be a ratings motherlode. They might have more people watching in Japan than in the States, but the baseball ratings have been up in the postseason. People have been captivated more so than in years for the baseball playoffs. And it's the first time since 1981 that the Dodgers and the Mets have played, or Dodgers and the Yankees have played in the World Series, which means all these players who are being asked about the Dodgers and the Yankees in the World Series, none of them were alive for the most part when this was going on. The 12th meeting all time, and so we'll see. You've got Superman, Spider-Man. What else? You got Godzilla, King Kong. I don't know. Any other historical matchups you want to put out there, but it's going to be fun to watch. Cannot wait. Starts on Friday, so we have plenty of time to forget about it until Friday. And also the fact that Dodgers and Mets play the exact same way, right? If you had a doppelganger of Dave Roberts, it would be Aaron Boone and vice versa. I mean, it's the same nerd ball. That's what they play. It's big money nerd ball. And so that's the matchup. That's what we have in the World Series.